Hello and welcome to the webinar K through 12 Asset Management for IT and Facilities, Best Practices to Empower Learning and Reduce Cost. Thanks for joining us. My name is Bruce Popke, Director of Marketing for EZO. I'll be your presenter today along with Paul Smith, Director of Enterprise Sales, and we'll be joined by Abdul Moise, Senior Sales Engineer. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Please feel free to use the Q&A button in Zoom to ask any questions, and we will answer them at the end during the Q&A session. And a link to the recording of this webinar will be sent to your email address after the presentation. Here's the agenda for today. We'll start with an overview discussion of the current thinking surrounding the relationship of asset management and K through 12 operations. Next, we'll step through 7 key use cases, followed by a quick word about related tools, and then questions and answers. Why is asset management important for K through 12 school districts? Well, as we know, school operations are not limited to just classrooms, but an expansive network of labs, libraries, sports halls, arts facilities, and more. And all require management strategies that enable administrators to drive common logistical tasks and limit disruption. In addition, it is also crucial for K through 12 school districts to accurately manage their software and hardware assets, networks, and educational technologies. Implementing protocols and developing processes to manage assets maximizes the usability of school equipment, reduces costs, and ensures the availability of these assets when needed by staff and students. High adoption of Chromebooks and other learning technologies in recent years has also highlighted the need for regular maintenance and servicing schedules for IT hardware assets and facilities. Next, we'll take a closer look at some of the potential impacts of inadequate asset and facilities management.
Bruce, I'd like to interject here, if you wouldn't mind. First, I'd like to let people know throughout, this is Paul Smith, Director of Enterprise Sales. And throughout the conversation, I'll be adding some real world examples as much as I can and giving you some feedback based on conversations I have had. But what I'd like to hear is, I want to emphasize this point. There is a fair amount of process involved in enrolling and managing the different aspects of student life. That same level of process should be applied to your systems. And the return is much more predictable and productive. So your staff can spend more time helping students take full advantage of the educational experience. Back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. Data shows that education is the #1 sector targeted for attack, logging 80% of the reported enterprise malware encounters in just the past 30 days. Next, in a survey carried out by Securely, 44% of respondents noticed that students at least sometimes lose or misplace devices. And in a study carried out by the Institute of Education Sciences in Chicago and the District of Columbia, nearly 80% of teachers reported that school facility conditions were an important factor in teaching quality. The issues highlighted in these studies are often the result of insufficient asset and facilities management, and clearly they can impede student performance and the quality of teaching. In order to ensure that student attendance, test scores, and overall productivity is not compromised, it is important to prioritize the security of assets and the maintenance of facilities. So let's take a look at the ways in which asset and facilities planning can help districts improve overall educational outcomes. Managing assets has always been a key challenge in K through 12 education, but with the widespread implementation of blended learning models and one-to-one computer policies, the impact is larger than ever. Here are the key benefits of asset management for your district. With asset management processes in place, schools can more effectively track items from the time they are checked out to a student to when they are returned. End-to-end tracking enables you to verify ownership at all times, making it possible to track down ownership in case of missing items. By maintaining a record of all assets in the system, you can efficiently manage spending of school funds. with invoices for each hardware purchase, maintenance cost, and software upgrade, you are never caught off guard in annual audits. Having a clear strategy for facilities management eliminates the chance of unexpected equipment breakdowns and prolonged downtimes. School buildings that are equipped with consistently functional amenities throughout the year help ensure that classes and other important school activities are never interrupted. And lastly, seamless deployment of Chromebooks and other devices for students, availability of critical assets for teachers, and improved campus safety all contribute to improving your students, offering your students, I meant to say, you're the best learning environment possible. Paul?
This is really important. I speak to school administrators and IT staff around the country, and the thing that continues to demand focus is how their computer assets and other capital expenses associated with student education are being used. Tracking where they are, who is using them, and processes for distributing and collecting them is top of mind for these folks. So it's an area that is getting a lot of attention right now, and I'm sure that in your organizations, you're seeing more attention to that as well. Back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. Effective asset management practices can help you overcome some key challenges in school operations. Here are a few examples of key problem areas you can resolve effectively with the support of an asset management process. The vast majority of K-12 educational institutions in the US rely on public funding, so tight budgeting surrounding the procurement, use, and maintenance of school assets is critical to successful operations. Without clear insight into the disposition of assets and associated costs, it's difficult to keep budgets aligned with future needs, ensure that inventories and equipment conditions are where they need to be at all times, and ultimately to ensure the responsible use of limited funds. Next, inaccurate records can present many problems, but in particular, with gaps and errors, it becomes extremely difficult to carry out proactive maintenance programs. Without preventive maintenance, schools are more likely to face unexpected downtimes due to the need for extensive reactive repairs. Well-designed asset management processes enable your team to effectively schedule and execute services and inspections for all facility equipment, ensuring greater reliability, improved equipment lifespans, and reduced costs. Lastly, schools are one of the fastest growing targets for IT security attacks. Students often use campus-issued devices to connect to an array of on and off-campus networks. Protecting these devices off-site is a significant challenge, requiring IT asset management techniques that ensure the visibility of device custody and the software running on them. These strategies help ensure that devices and sensitive school data are properly handled and kept safe through effective, systematic security management tools.
To
Paul?
this point, Bruce, let's when we look at this, let's look at all that occurs on a campus, not only with the Chromebooks, but you also have cafeteria equipment, exterior maintenance equipment, lab equipment, HVAC. Tracking and maintenance are key in all of these areas, and probably others that I haven't mentioned. Regarding security, I recently spoke to the head of IT initiatives for an organization that provides consultancy services to a Southwestern state's boards of education and superintendents. He stated that 70 to 80% of the projects he is working on have to do with better securing internal data in schools. It's definitely the K-12 market is definitely a new target of breaches. And remember, the data that you're collecting includes a lot of personal, student, and staff data that you really don't want other people to be able to see. So when we look at this security thing, it is something that has a high value right now and something that you definitely should be looking at. How are you securing the data in your organization? Back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. Great points. So now let's talk about solutions. Many learning impacted asset-related issues can be easily resolved if there are defined processes in place. Leveraging Google Spreadsheets or similar ad hoc systems for tracking and managing IT systems and facility equipment may not be enough to solve your organization's major challenges over time, but implementing a basic system is an important starting point. An asset-driven approach can help you improve help improve your ability to execute in most areas of learning support. The three key objectives enabled by these processes are operational reliability and readiness, easier and more accurate reporting, and time and cost savings. So we've selected 7 common workflows that benefit the most from the standardization of assets and facilities management processes, scenarios that your school likely handles every day.
I hope this is helpful. And as I said before, I'm just interjecting as I see areas where we have been, that I've been involved with. So I'm going to continue to talk about different areas where I see a connection to what we're talking to you about today. And just wanted to reiterate that point to you. Okay, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. Let's move on to use case number 1, and that is planning and procurement. A recent survey of 275 US schools showed that on average, 67% of the procured software licenses were going unused. And in some cases, the number was as high as 90%. Procuring equipment and IT devices requires both careful planning and clear access to data. Lack of strategic planning during the procurement phase can result in either underutilized assets or the unavailability of assets when they are needed. For example, if you are ordering Chromebooks and peripherals for your school before the beginning of a new term, and the data surrounding new enrollments is not available or complete, this increases the risk that you will not forecast the equipment requirement accurately. This in turn can result in delayed assignment of assets, which can disrupt the start of the new term for your students. Also, without complete information, it is difficult to account for the equipment that needs to be replaced, again impacting procurement accuracy, and also increasing the manual effort required to collect information, create work orders, and order more devices, all making the procurement process very inefficient. With hardware-heavy initiatives like one-to-one computing, it has become critical that you are able to plan and procure IT assets strategically. Access to information at each step of the procurement process is critical for better purchasing decisions. Standardized ticketing processes are important to track all purchase requests, while centralized vendor lists will help streamline cost comparisons that are required before finalizing a purchase. Procurement planning is also a vital component of K-12 facilities management. Before an asset is checked in for maintenance, it is important to have all spare and replacement parts at hand. To avoid last-minute class or event interruptions, it is best to follow a maintenance procurement checklist for all regular service requirements. Get in touch with the manufacturer for any inventory and tools you may need for your facilities, and in case of damages that are within warranty, you can then claim replacements. The next use case is IT deployment. Let's start with a simple example. As we know, the K-12 IT asset landscape includes Chromebooks, MacBooks, iPads, and Windows devices. K-12 school districts deploy thousands of these devices every year to students. One-to-one rollout programs in particular present a significant logistical challenge, ensuring that the correct devices have been deployed to each assigned user. Lack of process governing distribution and collection increases the risk of incorrect information, duplicate information, and other errors. Here's a typical deployment process: enrollment, then device distribution, account setup, IT verification, and then the students are ready. Paul? Paul, I believe you're muted.
I fell asleep on you for a minute there, Bruce.
I don't think so.
Yeah. This is an area that's been voiced to me as a goal by most IT organizations, to ensure that students and staff have the right stuff when they need it, to minimize disruption to the teaching and learning process. And for IT, one of the interesting things I've heard a lot is that they just want to be seen as an asset to the organization. So putting some of these processes in place and making sure that the right stuff gets to the right people at the right time is really key in this environment, because productivity is really something you want to focus on, because you do have limited class time and a lot of objectives that you need to try to hit. Back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. So that's the ideal, but what's the process to get there? Here are some best practices. Provision your students and faculty database beforehand. Having a single information repository is the critical first step. Set up a standardized process to verify the checkout of each device with date, location, and other key data recorded. Track devices using RFID tags, barcodes, QR codes, or a similar practice. By tagging your devices with unique asset tags, RFID, AIN numbers, or other identifiers, you can ensure that the right device is being assigned to the right user, simplify check-ins and checkouts, and support future tracking as needs arise. Custom labeling helps cut down on costs related to locating missing equipment. And lastly, after initial deployment, it is helpful to establish a process to verify that each designated user has received the intended device. A simple login or other communication method will help you confirm custody. Our second use case is facilities, service, and maintenance. First, let's look at some of the statistics that highlight the importance of process-driven facilities maintenance management. In a recent audit report released by the Office of the District of Columbia Auditor on maintenance and repairs in DC public schools, it was noted that 62% of the high priority work orders were not finished within the mandatory 10 days. The 2021 State of Our Schools report indicated that in 2020, 41% of U.S. districts needed to either replace or update the HVAC systems in at least half of their schools. Also, 20 to 35% had serious deficiencies in at least half of their roofing, lighting, or safety and security systems. According to the California Department of Education, students who receive instruction in buildings with good environmental conditions can earn test scores that are 5 to 17% higher than scores for students in substandard buildings. They also experience up to 14% lower student suspension rates. And lastly, according to the 2016 State of Our Schools report, as of 2012 to 2013, the average age of the main building of a public school was 44 years old. These numbers all point to an urgent need for a focused approach to school facility maintenance. Now we'll look at some of the impacts to operations and learning in school facilities management. Without regular servicing, assets run an increased risk of breaking down, reducing their overall usability and lifespan. Poor infrastructure and building conditions can have a negative impact on the quality of teaching and the ability of students to learn and perform, as many studies have pointed out. Similarly, maintenance gaps can delay or even cancel classes, directly impeding learning. And then there are overall increased costs. Without preventive maintenance, minor issues can go unnoticed and turn into major problems, leading to more costly repairs and replacements down the line. Regular maintenance can help identify and address potential safety hazards in facilities, including faulty electrical systems and broken equipment. Without preventive maintenance, these hazards may go unnoticed, leading to potential accidents and injuries. And lastly, poor indoor air quality. Without regular maintenance, HVAC systems can become clogged with dirt and debris, leading to poor indoor air quality and potential health problems, as well as an overall negative impact on the learning environment.
Bruce, can I interject here? First, I want to
Absolutely.
say, before we started this webinar, one of the things that Bruce said to me was, make sure you take yourself off of mute when you start talking. As you can see, there's been a couple times when I didn't follow those rules, so I will going forward. But to this point, Bruce has covered this point pretty well, and I have a little to add other than, remember the last time you had an HVAC problem that required days to be altered for comfort? It's much easier to keep everything going smoothly than having to refocus students whose routine is disrupted due to an unplanned loss of key environmental equipment. So this has an impact on the learning that takes place, the organization of the classroom, and it makes the teacher's job much more difficult when they have to try to get students who have taken a break due to an environmental concern, and now they're trying to get them back to concentrating on the lesson plan. So this is stuff that I find very important, and it does impact the educational experience, which is what we're all here for. Back to you, Bruce.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. With the help of a facilities management process, schools can deploy planned maintenance practices to help address potential issues before they develop into serious repair problems. Start off with a list of all the assets and facilities that will require regular maintenance. This will help you determine the time and effort required for setting up maintenance events. Next, decide the schedule, how often you want the assets and facilities to be serviced. Heavy machines and building infrastructure may not require repairs as often as smaller assets that are used by students on a daily basis. Establish standard processes and service levels to correspond with work types. Once you have a list and schedule ready, identify important maintenance tasks from your support team. These mainly depend on the frequency of usage of your assets and facilities. It can range from something as simple as checking exterior lighting up to complex work such as testing and servicing the HVAC blower motor. Design a maintenance checklist to help the technical team and staff carry out repair and service activities without missing any critical tasks. A more fully detailed maintenance plan may be required to keep your facilities working in good condition, for example, including relevant manufacturer maintenance guidelines to ensure that all requirements are being met. As a last step, document the results of your team's maintenance activities so that you can track progress and adjust strategies. Our next use case is IT asset and data security. Cybersecurity is a great concern for K-12 IT because it involves the protection of critical student and faculty information. But as school districts are adopting new technologies, they have also become increasingly popular targets for cyber attacks. There are many ways for cyber criminals to attempt to penetrate school systems, and the most common ones include ransomware, phishing, and data breaches. Data breaches can have very serious consequences on the learning environment, including disrupted lessons, closure of schools, and identity theft. Next, we'll look at a few statistics to consider.
Bruce, let me add something there. Based on my conversations, this is an area that needs a lot more attention, as we have had to move from a fairly closed school building-based teaching model to remote and blended instruction model. We have opened up multiple additional points of possible intrusion into your IT systems. Thus, the breaches we are now seeing. And as anyone can tell you, or as you can see, the number of attacks in this space have increased quite a bit. As Bruce is talking through some of these, you'll hear some of the statistics, but it's an area that we really need to pay attention to because of the sensitivity of the data. Back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. Great point. Recent data shows that $1.5 million is the average cost for educational institutions to retrieve data from a ransomware attack. Ensuring that prevention practices are being carried out properly by both teachers and students is just as important as policy implementation. Recent research indicates that 42% of schools have staff and students that circumvent cybersecurity practices. Although cybersecurity attacks are common for K-12 schools, for K-12 schools still do not have the sufficient means to tackle its consequences. The CEO of CyberCatch, cybersecurity solutions provider, recently stated 75% of the schools said that they would only survive a ransomware attack for 3 to 7 days, and 55% either don't have an incident response plan or it's outdated. Based on these statistics, it's more critical than ever to have well-defined asset and IT processes in place to minimize chances of a data breach. Next, we are going to discuss some preventative measures against cybersecurity threats. Devising strong mobile device management strategies across your Chromebooks and other devices is a key preventative measure against cyber threats and other risks of data breaches. Since your students and faculty members are sharing the school network, it is critical that you enforce strong access management policies. Use the principle of least privilege, that is, only grant the minimum access to system resources and authorization that are required for each user type to ensure that only relevant users can access confidential school information. In addition, you should also be able to revoke access to software and applications once the students or faculty members have left the school. Apart from setting up firewalls, you can also set software limitations to ensure that specific websites or applications are blacklisted and must not be accessed by your students, which improves network security. You can also create a policy to deploy network agents or use a mobile device management tool to have a 360-degree view of how your devices are being utilized, what is being accessed, and more. Accurate tracking of hardware devices also helps minimize risks of asset theft and loss. And lastly, you should have enhanced service management strategies in place to ensure continuity of operations in the face of unplanned event or service disruption.
Bruce, let me add something here. I think this is a place where I've seen a lot of positive news. I see a lot of districts that have recognized these vulnerabilities and are either in the planning or procurement phase of obtaining the technologies that can manage and better address this set of vulnerabilities. So I think the good thing there is that there's a recognition of the issue, and I see a lot of districts that are putting together their plans and processes, as well as looking at the procurement of technologies that can help them better secure their environment. So, that's a good piece of news, and I think we're going to see that continue. Back to you, Bruce.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Our fifth use case is compliance. K-12 school districts regularly introduce new technology and software applications to ensure an enhanced learning experience for students and better academic performance. But along with the benefits of increased software use also comes the need to monitor compliance with software vendors. As school districts buy multiple software licenses with hundreds or thousands of software seats, it becomes impossible to keep track of these licenses without streamlined processes and timely checks. In addition, most K-12 school districts are also required to stay compliant with FERPA, SIPA, and COPPA regulations. Hardware and software compliance management is necessary in order to ensure responsible school operations, and failing to comply with relevant standards can result in serious consequences, including penalties and fines, health and safety hazards, and damage to your school district's reputation. So now, next, let's look at best practices. Annual inventory audits are a major part of building the school inventory database, as they help to determine exactly what assets are stored, how they are being used, and their condition. Without an accurate inventory database, it becomes harder to keep track of assets and ultimately carry out an audit. Organizing regular audits enables schools to address fraudulent activities and control costs through reducing the probability of misplaced assets. An accurate inventory record makes it easy to compare audit numbers for past years and ensure that any differences are accounted for. Additionally, an audit maintains a trail of financial statements that are useful when applying for sponsorships and funds. Here's how you can utilize your inventory database to support an external audit. First, put measures in place to ensure that you always meet the compliance requirements for software and hardware usage. This helps guarantee that your business will not face any fines or penalties during an external audit. Second, based on your hardware and usage data, you can set up depreciation management protocols, tracking the usage of your devices, calculating depreciation over time, and anticipating their value before external audits. Third, if there are lost or stolen assets that are still registered in your school's system, you can identify and eliminate those ghost assets through internal audits and take measures to minimize this trend. And lastly, it is best to track and update the custodies and locations of your assets so you can be prepared with updated information ahead of an external audit. Again, staying compliant with software vendor agreements as well as government regulations helps you avoid potentially large penalties. So it is important to stay informed about licenses that are expiring in the near future so they are renewed on time without disrupting the learning environment for students. It is also important to track software seats that are being utilized and increase or decrease the number of entitled seats accordingly. Staying compliant in this manner serves as a proactive measure in case there's an external audit. And in facilities, establishing maintenance management policies can help ensure timely resolution of classroom and campus maintenance issues. To ensure health and safety compliance, leverage checklists to ensure that standards are being met and that they provide a secure learning environment for both faculty and students. All right, our next use case is asset lifecycle management. Knowing the value of your assets allows you to plan for asset retirement and replacement and also helps you to budget accurately for the next school year. You can create depreciation schedules for your Chromebooks and other widely used assets to track depreciation over time. This detailed look simplifies the creation of asset disposal policies for your school district, where your team can follow predefined steps to ensure that you are retiring IT assets in a standardized process and timeline. You can also create checklists and procedure outlines for the retiring phase, ensuring that assets are disposed of in a consistent manner across the entire district. Here is an example of a retirement phase in a K-12 environment. The benefits include effective management, standardization, consistent salvage value calculations, and accurate asset valuations.
Bruce, let me add here. Most districts have a set of a set asset retirement age, which usually aligns with the depreciation schedule. But I think it's important that as we move into this one-to-one device to student model, that this is going to be something that we have to look at continually. So while you may have a policy, make sure that that policy is being followed, because if it's not being followed now, it's going to just add more and more complexity to you having a good hold on the information that Bruce was just talking to you. And this impacts your security process, and also it does impact the consistent learning environment. Remember, we're in the teaching and learning business, and so having that environment be stable and consistent is key to you having a successful outcome with your students. Back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Paul. Our final K-12 operational use case is analytics and reporting. Managing facilities and assets accounts for a large portion of school districts' budgets every year. Without detailed reports and insights, it can become quite challenging to quantify the utilization of already existing assets and to accurately assess the asset needs for the upcoming year. It's important to be able to extract these insights by utilizing the data collected over the previous year. Let's go over a couple of the most relevant asset reports for your school district. First is total cost of assets. This type of report shows a collective valuation of existing assets in your school district and details how many of these assets are being utilized and how many are on the shelf. Such reports can be created by considering depreciation, utilization, expected lifetime, and other similar factors for each month of the past year. Second is available assets by location. Since school districts usually have multiple locations, these reports can make it easier for you to follow which assets have been deployed across different locations. They can also help you determine the low order threshold for every location, helping you to see in advance when new inventory needs to be purchased. Next is a maintenance report. This report helps you stay informed about how many assets are being maintained, how long they are out for maintenance, and the cost. You can either look at the overall numbers across the school, or ideally, you would be able to drill down in the report to specific assets to check their respective numbers. Oops. And lastly, there's depreciation. This report can show data that indicates how your assets are being depreciated and the value of these assets. This helps you plan the procurement of new assets, as well as ordering replacement devices for the ones that are near retirement. And now we're going to have a quick word about management, asset management, asset facilities management tools. And over to you, Paul.
Okay, pitch time. We here at EZO, we have three major products that address the K through 12 landscape. First, we have Easy Office Inventory, which is our flagship product. And what it does is it allows organizations to manage and track their physical assets. So that product allows you to track things like chairs or tables, blackboards, lab equipment, and that sort of thing. Any asset that you have that's a physical asset, and the peripherals applied to that are handled by Easy Office Inventory. Asset Sonar is another one of our products, and it allows for the tracking and management of IT assets, including both the devices and the peripherals associated with those devices. It also allows integration with products like Intune and Jamf, as well as the key mobile device management systems that are available in the market today. The third product is EZO CMMS. It is our latest product, and it's built to manage the work of a maintenance organization from the time a staff member makes a request to the time that the maintenance is completed. All of these products are customizable to replicate your present workflows, have custom reporting capabilities, customizable dashboard, and mobile app capabilities, which allow you to do things like scan on site, request information from the field, and those sort of things. So as you look at at the products that we offer, we handle the asset from the time that you purchase it and through the maintenance processes that it goes through to the time that you retire it, as well as a log of those retired assets, so you can see what has been retired over a period of time, and also look at, are we retiring things sooner than we expected, or are we reassigning them too late? Both issues are not positive. So those are the set of products that we have presently that address K through 12, and we're always looking at additional things that we can do to make the life of administration on a campus as simple as possible. So that's kind of an overall look at the products we have. There's much more information about those on our website, and always feel free to reach out, and we'll have someone more than happy to talk to you about how those products might be of value to your organization. Bruce, that's all I got on that.
All right, sounds good. We're almost at the end here. It's Q&A time. Again, please feel free to write any questions that you may have in the Q&A screen or in the chat, the Zoom Q&A screen or the chat. We have just a couple questions here. One is how much, let's see, I think this is going to be a question for Moise. I'd like to reintroduce Abdul Moise, a sales engineer with EZO. How much reduction in device losses can we expect after implementing an asset management solution?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Bruce. In my conversations with the school districts and educational organizations, I have come across customers that have reported that they have reduced the overall device losses up to 50%. Now, this much device loss reduction can help you better plan for your next school year, have more budget available to focus on other activities, and improve the overall working of the school environment. Now, this can benefit so many other projects just by reducing the device loss overall. Back to you, Bruce.
Great. Thanks very much. Next question. I think this is for Paul, probably. Do you find that smaller school districts are behind the bigger districts in implementing asset management processes or systems?
No, actually, Bruce, I don't. I see that there is a certain districts are just more IT focused and are more are quicker at going after the problem. Those can go from the large school districts to the smaller school districts. I actually find that the larger school districts are spending much more time on managing the actual devices and the student interaction. So they, in many cases, they haven't gotten to a lot of the things that we talked about today. While at some of the smaller school districts, because they have less of a challenge with the one-on-one, they have a tendency to be looking at the total picture and looking at ways that they can solve a lot of the issues that they have. And so it's really not broken up by larger districts or smaller districts. It's really more what is the focus on the problem of the boards and superintendents on addressing this issue now rather than waiting for a brief. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, that's a great answer. I think we just have one more. Again, feel free to add any more questions before we finish. What are some of the things to keep in mind when we are looking for a secure asset management software system? I think, Paul, it sounds like it's probably for you.
Okay. I think there's a few things. One is, we have limited funds. So price is something that you want to look at. You want to look at whether or not are you in a growth district or you're in a district that is pretty status quo, or do you have a lowering student population, because you want to be able to plan accordingly for the future. The other thing you want to look at is how well does the system that you're looking at accommodate the workflows that you presently have, or is the system going to push you in a certain direction and only allow you to do things a certain way? So you want to look at a system that can best replicate the workflows that you have now. As you're going through those workflows, you'll find places in those workflows that you're doing things that you're not really sure why you're doing them. And it's kind of falls into that because we've always done them that way category. So I think those are the things you want to look at first. I think the customization to your present workflows is key, because the last thing is you don't want to add non-productive time to the day as people learn how to do something in a different way than they have been doing it, and in many cases less efficient. So I think those are the things that you really should look at when you're looking at acquiring one of these sort of systems. Does that answer your question, Bruce?
That sounds like a great answer to me. I think that's it for all the questions. Since there are no more, I think that's a wrap. Please reach out to us at info@ezio.io if any additional questions arise, and we will be glad to help. Thank you very much for attending our webinar. We hope it's been helpful for you and your team. You will receive a link to the event recording via email within a few days. Have a great day.